In the silent white ice of the Alps, where no sound penetrates the icy wind, a man lies as if he has been sleeping for millennia. His skin has turned a coppery red, pale in the pale light reflected off the snow. An arm emerges from the ice, fingers curled as if trying to grasp something. Before time freezes everything, no one knows who he is. No one knows how long he has been lying there. Until one day in 1991, when two hikers stumbled upon the body on the route between Italy and Austria. At first, they thought it was a modern accident. An unfortunate hiker had just been buried in the snow. They called the police. But then the researchers arrived. They carefully brushed away the ice, touched the skin, examined the hair, the clothes, the neatly arranged items beside it. And they were speechless. Because the body had been lying there for over 5,000 years. The body had not decayed. The hair was still there. The limbs were still there. Even the last meal in his stomach had not yet been digested. No grave, no burial ceremony. He was left naked in the middle of nature, as if waiting for someone to find him. A death that seemed random, but had signs of being arranged. The location where he was found was a sacred landscape, according to many archaeological theories. More than 3,000 meters above sea level, surrounded by rugged terrain, not a place for hunting or shelter. And even more strange, personal items were neatly placed next to the body, unlike the victims of a normal murder or attack. A bow, pieces of cloth, flint tools, herbs, and even a piece of charcoal. All were arranged together, as if in some kind of ritual. Was he not simply a man who died in an accident? Was he a sacrificial object? A chosen person, carrying offerings sent up the mountain to act as a bridge between man and the gods? Some researchers call him the sacrificial traveler, one who was sent, never to return. And so, that man Otzi is not only the best preserved ancient body ever found, he is the greatest mystery that the ice has ever kept from mankind. Part 1. Excavation and forensic diagnosis. Otzi was not exhumed as an artifact. He was brought up as a dead man. It all began in September 1991. A German couple were hiking through the Schnauzstil Valley in the South Tyrol Alps. It was a sunny day, and the snow had begun to melt, revealing a strange shape lying in a narrow crevice of the ice. A body, shriveled up, lay on its left side. An arm was covering its face. Part of its back was protruding from the ice, as if trying to reach for the light. Next to it were an axe, a broken bow and arrow, some scraps of cloth, and other items. The sight left them shaken. They reported it to the local police. The next day, rescuers, forensics, and mountaineering experts arrived at the scene. And like the first people, they thought it was just a modern corpse, a recent accident. They tried to get the body out of the ice, using metal axes and shovels, causing some serious damage to the body that they later regretted. But then everything changed when the results of the analysis of the carbon-14 radioisotope from the bones and linen on the body were published around 3300 BC. A shock to the entire scientific world. Otzi had been lying in the snow and ice for more than 5,000 years. Just imagine, in the middle of a cold morning thousands of years ago, instead of a small man lying motionless in a crevice of ice, we see a giant creature. A mammoth with thick fur covered in frost, curved tusks piercing the snow, its muscular body frozen in time. An extinct animal. A spirit from the Ice Age. If that were what we found, the world would probably be shocked, but also more accepting, because the mammoth is a symbol of the Ice Age. But instead, it was a man like us, with eyes, skin, fingers, and a beating heart. And he lay there alone, in the thick ice for 5,300 years, as if sleeping in the middle of the universe. That was stranger than any mammoth. Because it was not just a fossil, but a big question for humanity. Who was Otzi? And why did he lie there? for 5 millennia. The first examinations, layer by layer of secrets, revealed they took the body to the Institute in Innsbruck, where Otzi was kept in a special cold chamber that simulated an environment of ice and snow at -6 degrees and 99% humidity. Experts began CT scans, X-rays, tissue analysis, hair samples, DNA and bone structure. And from there, a portrait gradually emerged. Otzi was a man of about 45 years old, 160 centimeters tall, weighing about 50 kilograms. He had brown hair, shoulder length, a short beard, and a lean build, signs of someone who lived in a harsh environment. Strange tattoos appeared along the back, knees, and ankles that could have been a form of acupuncture or healing rituals. And then they discovered a detail that shattered all previous hypotheses. Otzi did not die of cold. His body had an arrow lodged in his left shoulder, severing his aorta. There was a deep gash on his right hand, as if he had been in battle. And in his stomach, his last meal of antelope meat, grain, and moss remained intact, indicating that he had been eating normally just hours before his death. All of this pointed to one terrible truth. Otzi had been murdered. An ancient murder, or a ritual sacrifice. At first, researchers thought he had been the victim of an ambush while hunting or fleeing. But the details were not consistent, as personal items were placed too neatly, with bows and arrows arranged next to him, herbs in leather bags, tools carefully wrapped. There were no signs of robbery, no scratches. These clues led some archaeologists to suspect that Otzi was not the victim of a simple murder. The way he was laid out, head toward the mountain, face to the east, may have had a spiritual significance. The items that accompanied him may have been offerings. And the location where the body was found, a treacherous ravine, over 3,000 meters high, seems to have been carefully chosen, not a place to stumble upon accidentally. A theory that is gaining more and more support. Otzi may have been a sacrificial victim in an ancient ritual. A chosen person, taken up a high mountain, carrying his most precious things, to surrender his body to the gods. Part 2. The baggage of a chosen one. Imagine you are looking at a man lying motionless in the ice, in the middle of a cold mountain. But around him is not the panic of a fugitive. Instead, there is a strange arrangement, as if he had chosen to lie there. Next to the body is a bronze axe. Not an ordinary weapon, but an axe with a red pine handle, connected to a bronze blade by resin adhesive. A technique known only to the most skilled. And did you know? Metallographic analysis shows that the copper in the axe was mined in Tuscany, Italy, hundreds of kilometers away from Otzi. Would a casual hunter need such a sophisticated item? Then there is a whole set of small knife-pointed stone tools. Deer antler hooks for sharpening stones, dry bark for lighting fires, and flint scraps from far away. Each item was packed and preserved, as if he were preparing for a journey of no return. Each item was a message, that he was not a lost man, but a man on a mission. But the strangest thing was inside his own body. Analysis of his stomach revealed that Otzi's last meal was antelope meat, grain, and plenty of fat, enough energy for a long journey. But who was on the run, eating such a sumptuous feast? Or was it a sacrificial feast? Could it be that he was not running away? He was heading towards his destiny, like an ancient ritual where people were sent away with their most precious possessions. And those items, the axe, the bow and arrows, the dagger, even the grass-lined leather shoes, the hand-sewn bearskin coat, were not just survival gear. They were symbols. Signals to the world that this man was not normal. Was he the chosen one? No one can answer. But the old, tattered, strangely arranged objects are the first clues to a hypothesis. Otzi may have been a living offering sent in exchange for something greater, for the whole community. A question lies quietly deep under the ice. Part 3. Ancient skin marks, When scientists began examining Otzi's body with infrared light, they discovered something peculiar that was invisible to the naked eye. His skin was covered with more than 60 tattoos of dots and lines, concentrated around his lower back, knees, ankles, and wrists. At first, this made many people think of therapeutic procedures. Was Otzi the first person in human history to receive acupuncture? German biomedical researchers compared the locations of the tattoos with traditional Chinese medicine sayings and were surprised to find that many of them overlapped significantly. There were black dots right where the fights often caused pain due to degeneration. Could it be that Stone Age societies possessed a primitive form of healing, combining imagery and belief? But then, questions begin to arise quietly, but not easily dismissed. If this was a painful treatment, why did Otzi have not just 3 or 5, but 61 tattoos? Why would a man being pursued, as the fugitive hypothesis suggests, have the time to draw each symbol on his body? And what is more strange is that none of these images are artistic in the way we find them in later cultures. There are no animal figures, no hunting scenes, no ornate patterns. They are surprisingly simple. Sharp songs, small dots following each other like ancient codes. Maybe it was not a cure, but a ritual. A way to disguise oneself before entering the afterlife? Or is it the signature of the tribe to mark a chosen one? The Forbidden One chooses sacred symbols to lead the soul up the high mountains where the ice keeps the secret. It is safe to say that some scholars believe that these images are like maps, not geographical maps, but natural maps guiding the soul. Perhaps in ancient rituals, carving on the flesh was not just a personal signal, but a wish engraved deep into the physical body as a union between the human and the yang, supernatural forces. And in that cold silence, amid the mountain wind and falling snow, Otzi could have been there as a prepared offering, marked with 61 mountain and sky marks, to complete a ritual that we can only imagine today. Part 4. Death after the festival. Otzi had eaten a great meal before he died. When scientists analyzed his stomach, which had slid down after millennia of preservation in the ice, they found pieces of chamois meat, crushed grain, and even traces of moss, possibly eaten by mistake or used as medicine. A high-protein, high-energy meal, completely opposite to the image of a man on the run in desperation. Not only was Otzi full, but he also ate a rare food in the highlands, wild game. Such dishes required preparation, fire, and time. It was a feast, not a hastily eaten dry rations. But then, the marks on his body revealed a completely different story. Otzi had been shot from behind. An arrow lodged in his left shoulder, severing an artery. There was a deep wound on the hand that looked like a slash wound from an attempt to defend himself. And finally, a fracture in the skull, possibly caused by a hard blow. Everything happened suddenly, painfully, and fatally. So what? A man who had just finished a nutritious meal, only hours before, was ambushed and mercilessly murdered? It didn't look like an escape. It didn't look like a robbery. It didn't look like an accident. A bold hypothesis was put forward, but it seemed more and more plausible. This could be a sacrificial ritual. The meal might not have been a survival meal, but a final meal. A sacred feast prepared by the community, reserved for the chosen one. Otzi was well fed, had symbols carved into his flesh, was equipped with precious items. And then, in the midst of the quiet snowy landscape, while he was at peace, and perhaps praying or meditating, the arrow was shot. Death came not out of hatred, but as part of a preordained ritual. Stranger still, why did no one come to reclaim his precious bronze axe? No one take his leftover food or his expensive leather shoes? Perhaps because he no longer belonged to this world. Otzi was taken up high, fed, carved into a sacred form, and then returned to the mountains. Not as a victim, but as a messenger to where the cold winds never ceased to blow. Part 5. Why Otzi? The question that kept ringing in the minds of researchers. Why, Of all the hundreds, even thousands of people who lived in the Alps 5,000 years ago, was Otzi brought here? He was not a warrior covered in battle scars. He was not a punished prisoner. His figure, based on bone analysis, was quite well proportioned. His age was about 45, which meant he had passed the rare middle age of that period. A man who had lived, worked, and experienced many harsh winters. But the items he carried revealed his special status. A sophisticated bronze axe, a tool and weapon so rare that only the elite possessed it. A set of skillfully sewn leather clothes, enough to keep warm at deadly altitudes. Stone knives, leather bags for herbs, and a complete set of fire-making tools. It was not just a survival tool, but a set of honorary luggage. In many ancient societies, the position of the patriarch was not only a political leader, but also a spiritual symbol of the whole community. Authority and responsibility. The patriarch was the one who shouldered the fate of the group. And in some cultures, when the community was in danger of crop failure, epidemics, or conflicts, the patriarch as voluntary sacrifice was seen as the ultimate act to buy back balance for everyone. If this was a sacrificial ritual, then Otzi was not chosen because he was weak, but because he was valuable enough to become a representative. Some theories suggest that he could have been a spiritual leader, a healer, or someone who had owed the community a favor, and now it was time to repay it with his own life. In many ancient cultures, the death of a chosen person was not an end, but a gift to protect crops, ward off disease, or ask for the blessings of the gods. The location where Otzi was found, in a narrow gorge where ice and wind never melt, may have been a sacred landscape, a place that people believed was the boundary between the world of the living and the world of the dead. And so, the question, why Otzi, may not have a single answer. Perhaps he volunteered. Perhaps it was an order from the community. Or, more strangely, it was an honor, a final journey that only a few experienced. But whatever the reason, the image of the man lying still in the ice, still holding the bronze axe in his hand, makes us realize Otzi was not just a mummy. He is a living story of sacrifice, faith, and the profound connection between man and the universe that we modern people have somewhat lost. Part 6. The Last Trace and the Frozen Farewell. Imagine a silvery afternoon in the Alps over 5,000 years ago. The wind howls, rushing over the sharp rocks. Snow begins to fall, each flake light and cold, sprinkling on the shoulders of a man walking slowly, without any hurry. He carries with him a precious bronze axe, a fire knife, and a bag of herbs. His clothes are thick animal skins, grass shoes, and a well-tailored coat, all neatly tailored. Each step seems guided by a clear purpose, as if he knows where he is going and why. There may be a small group of close friends or clan members walking silently with him. No one speaks. There is only the sound of wind and the crunching of snow underfoot. They know this is a one-way journey. Then, on a flat area in the middle of the mountainside, they stop. Otzi sat down to eat his last meal. Roasted ibex, red deer, and wild grain. No rush, no shivers. A small feast in the cold, perhaps to gain strength, or to honor the upcoming ritual. As the last light of day touched the mountaintop, an arrow flew from behind, piercing his left shoulder. Otzi fell, his hand still touching the animal skin at his side. A heavy blow to the head ended it all. No chaos, no flight. The people there did not abandon him. They replaced his clothes, arranged his belongings beside him, so that he lay facing what might have been the sun, or perhaps a star they believed was the gateway to the afterlife. Then they left, letting the wind and ice complete the ritual. Within hours, the ice would seal his body in the cloak of eternity. Year after year, century after century, Otzi lay there motionless but intact, as if guarding an ancient promise. And then, 5,000 years later, when the ice retreated, we modern humans accidentally entered that farewell ceremony, becoming unwanted witnesses. Every trace on his body, every knife wound, every grain of food is now a piece of a story that perhaps Otzi himself never thought would be told. The final question in the ice. Who do you see through the ice of more than 5,000 years? Otzi is not just a mummy. He is the last intact portrait of a human being from the dawn of history. Every scar, every thread of cloth, every grain of food in his stomach is like the last strokes on a giant painting left by his ancestors. But the scariest question is not who he is, but if someone from the past stepped out, would we recognize them? They may not be on the stage of archaeological discoveries. They may not be in museums. They may be standing right next to us in the habits, beliefs, or rituals we still practice without knowing where they came from. Because sometimes the past is not behind us, but facing us from the other side of the ice.